We are live.
We're live.
When you're 80, 300 million comes in good for your legacy. So you said I should wait a couple. I'm always.
It's up to you.
on-
It's 6:27. We start
Okay.
after 6:30, just 3 minutes.
Okay,
So, make yourself,
sounds good. I am. Well, to make myself comfortable, I'll move away from you.
No, it's fine. The whole distancing thing would probably
Yeah.
be good.
It would probably be good. We need one Jacob. It was.
What?
One Jacob.
Oh my God. So, you and Sasha do anything special or go to any place? Or just,
No.
yeah.
Spencer and I will do something special when Sasha leaves.
Yeah, that's a good policy.
Yeah.
So.
No, every day is special now that Sasha.
I know. Make sure we got it.
All I've been doing is working overtime so that we can have a Christmas.
Good morning. I see Bodie McIntyre. Good morning. Or good morning. Good evening. Forced to have it there. Been a long day too. A very long day.
Oh, sure.
Hey,
Welcome,
Scott,
everybody.
Since it's warming up, this is the thing that I keep showing you. Like sometimes, like the people send a join request, and I think I could come on live and like do a prayer or something. You know what I mean? Just as an interesting side note there. Like if I send a request to you, let's just see what happens.
Friend. That's special.
Are you ready, Sasha?
You already are my friend. It's pretty great, man.
Sasha's going to play
Thanks
a
for
huge
sharing that
part
with
in
us.
today's lesson. It's a huge part.
But it's gay. Remember in the old days when we used to just be friends, now we have to send a friend request.
Yeah.
Just saying.
I got a thing from Facebook reminding me that I was friends with a guy I knew since the 80s, that we have been friends for 4 years.
Yeah.
It's saying he's gonna put you on.
Okay.
Life did not exist before Facebook.
Oh, very nice. That is a
Whoa.
great noise.
That is
We can
cool.
bring people in to pray and stuff.
Is it okay if I take you off?
Guys, we're just testing this out. I'm gonna
Don't be
Turn it
freaked
off.
out by Tony.
Echo, echo, echo.
I just actually, I'm sorry.
Was that an accident as you clicked the button?
Well, I just want to know.
Because it sounded like we were in the presence of.
But that's good to know. Thank you for
Yeah.
that feature.
And the thing is, depending on the device you're on, not everybody gets that.
Maybe tonight we should just talk about technology.
Yeah, sure. I know.
3 hours.
I know a lot about that.
We should just give you a random topic.
Things I should have studied in college.
Awesome.
Okay, well, I guess we're ready to start. Thank you for coming out, either in person or virtually. Welcome, whether it's in the comfort of your own home or the comfort of the church here. This is our fourth lesson in the, I guess, Following Jesus series. There will be one more on the 23rd, so look out for that. They're kind of putting me in as like caulk. I just kind of fill the holes, and I'm like educational caulk here. But I'm told that that's needed, so I'm more than glad to do it. But we'll have our final lesson on the 23rd. So this time, when we talk about following Jesus, we're calling this the cost of following Jesus. And that's kind of a misnomer, and I hope that becomes obvious at some point in the lesson. Okay, so as I do, I like to read a prayer from the book that I got the ideas for these lessons from. So I'm going to go ahead and do that. So let's start with a little prayer. Dear Lord, give me the eyes to see and the ears to hear. I know there is light in the darkness that makes everything new. I am there. I know there is new life in suffering that opens a new earth for me. I know there is joy beyond sorrow that regenerates my heart. Yes, Lord, I know that you act that you love, that you indeed are light, life, and truth. People, work, plans, projects, ideas, meetings, buildings, paintings, music, and literature can only give real joy and peace when I can see the reflection of your presence, your glory, and your kingdom. Let me then see and hear, Lord. Show me your vision, become a guide in life, and impart meaning to all my concerns. I know if you were paying attention, I read that one last week, or the last time we were together as well. I really didn't like the one so much. It was actually just a passage from a book that was kind of shaped into a prayer. Didn't really flow for me, so I reread that one. But I want to focus today on the reward of following Christ. The reward of following Christ is found in the phrase, "My joy will be yours." My joy will be yours. Now, the great thing about that statement is who said it? Jesus Christ said, "My joy." So when we talk about joy in a Christian sense, we're talking about Christ's joy. Okay? Christ's joy. And now, I want to share just a quick story from my life. And it has to do with the birth of my second child. Okay? The birth of my first child, Spencer, comes to me in kind of a picture. I was trying to explain to him at dinner because I was like, I'm going to share about your sister's birth, and there's some civil rivalry in our family because we have siblings. So, there's sibling rivalry. And so I was trying to assure my oldest that, even though I'm going to share how great and wonderful the birth of my daughter was, that rest assured, son, your birth was important too, and all that. It was good because we got to talk about some things, and I got to share some things that we hadn't talked about as a family for years. Well, this is the story. Spencer's birth, that's my son, his birth, I only really remember what leads up to Spencer's birth, and then what kind of, just like the moment that he was born and all the joy afterwards. Because it really did, after we figured out what it actually meant, like, yes, we're having a baby, because we went to the hospital 6 or 7 times, no kidding, 6 or 7 times. When your significant other says to you, "Oh, I think I'm having a baby," you don't want to sit there and mansplain and say, "Well, let's go through the checklist, sweetie. Are you really? You know what you said last time?" So we got up, and it was never like 3:30 in the afternoon, like right after the football game went over, and didn't really have anything planned right before dinner. It was always 2:15 in the morning. 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was always on a weekday. It was never on the weekend, It just seemed like this is a major inconvenience. But I got to know what Braxton Hicks is. That's false labor. I got to hear that 6 or 7 times, being the explanation why you're not having a baby tonight. You will go home and you will have a baby another night. So for Spencer, it was kind of like all this confusion and young people wanting to get everything right. And then his birth went flawlessly. It was like the doctor came in and said, "Well, in about 32 minutes, you should have a baby boy." And like in 32 minutes, we had a baby boy. He came back right at the time. Okay, he suited up, we had a baby boy. Sasha, on the other hand, that's my daughter, she wasn't quite as simple as that, because of human error, right? Nothing on my wife at the time, nothing she did or nothing Sasha did. She didn't try and come down the wrong way like some kids do. She was all set up and ready to go, right? She was being good even then, right? Not contrarian. But the nurse, who was probably under a lot of pressure and had a lot going on in her life, forgot to give the epidural. She came in and gave I guess, the numbing shot for the epidural, but she never came back and actually gave the epidural. And so my wife at the time, she's saying, I can still feel it. There's a lot of pain. There's a lot of pain. We need to ask, And so finally I said, doctor, can I see a doctor? My wife's complaining that there's still pain. Did they ever come back for the epidural? I was like, well, they gave her a shot in the back. Is that the epidural? Yeah, I think so, but let me check. So the lady rushed into the room, and they did some things under the hood there, and they determined that they couldn't give the epidural. So in the course of 45 minutes, or less than 45 minutes, we went from having a regular old drug-induced or drug-assisted American birth to having a natural birth, something we weren't prepared for. But I went outside, I practiced the thing, I practiced the breathing. I got in my best mind, no jokes, nothing. I've come in, this is serious, she's gonna need my help. So came back in and we did it. 45 minutes of screaming. I now know what a blood-curdling scream sounds like. People will always say, wow, that scream was blood-curdling. I know what a blood-curdling scream sounds like, right? And we had a baby. And the one thing I did notice was she was crying. She was crying. She was in pain. Her face was pale, ashen. She was sweating. She was really having a tough time. I mean, my hands hurt a little bit from how she was squeezing them, but I got over it, guys. Don't worry. But it was really a tough time looking over and seeing the person you love, and it was heartbreaking. But then I looked up and we heard the cry of the baby, and I went over and I brought Sasha back to her mother and set her on her chest, and I noticed that it was tears of joy. All of that pain ended in tears of joy. And Jesus even shares some of that. And he says in John 16:20, he goes like this, verily, verily, I tell you, you will weep and mourn, but the world will rejoice. You will have pain, but your pain will turn into joy. When a woman is in labor, she has pain because her hour has come. But when her child is born, she no longer remembers the anguish because of the joy of having brought a human being into the world. So you have pain now, but I will tell you again, and your hearts will rejoice, and no one will take your joy from you. So we see that joy is not too far from pain. Again, Christ turns everything we think we know on its ear, right? Why do we have trouble explaining joy? If you asked anyone, what does joy mean? They might say, well, it's being really happy, right? That's because we falsely think joy and happiness are synonyms. Joy, you can insert that for happiness, sure, right? I'm happy. I was very joyful that I can't remember the last time it happened, but when the Eagles won, right? When the Eagles won, I was very joyful. We can talk about sorrow. Like when my back really hurts, I can talk to you for days about the pain in my back. I have great words to express the pain that I have in my back. It is agonizing. It is excruciating. It is fill in the blank with another horrible word, right? And I can give you metaphor. It's like someone has punched me right there on my spine and just won't stop. It's as if someone is grabbing it with a vice. I can explain pain for days. joy. I'm really happy, right? Isn't that what we say? Because we've lost another word to sex, basically. We've lost our definition for the word ecstasy, right? Ecstasy, ecstatic. We don't use that word anymore. Why? Because it's been convoluted into something else. But ecstasy means the joy of moving from the static, moving away, joy in moving away. And that's what Jesus is talking about. It's that joy of moving away from the pain, right? Why is the mother happy? Partly because it's over, right? The pain is over, right? And now, would happiness sum that up? I'm happy the pain is over, right? No, we need something stronger. We need something stronger. It's not replaceable with the same thing. Like, I'm happy we had pasta for dinner tonight. And I'm happy that we put ricotta cheese in it, which was one of my favorite go-to pasta moves, right? Putting a little ricotta cheese in the sauce, right? But I'm not overjoyed by dinner, right? Dinner, good 5 minutes. But what I was overjoyed with is the conversation we were able to have as a family. Why? Because we were able to move out of today and talk about a time when we were happy, when we experienced joy. I got to share with my children a time when they brought me joy, right? That's talking about passing that joy on. My joy, hopefully, became their joy, right? So, what are some things that rob us of the joy, right? First of all, sometimes things that rob us of joy is the words. We can't express joy. We may not want to use the word ecstasy in public conversation, I guess, right? So we do settle for really happy, right? Or we can't really express it because maybe the person that we're talking to has no reference point, right? Joy really is only something that we as Christians can have, right? Truly. Maybe non-believers can experience joy on the short term, but that's not what joy is. Joy is not meant for the short term. Joy is meant to be our baseline. Joy is meant to be our baseline. Happiness, we think about things in terms in life. Well, we have happy and sad times, right? And sometimes, if you're like me, if you can be really morose, sometimes you think, I need some happy to break up the sadness, right? That's what happy does. Happy breaks up the sadness or the mundane of life, right? But Jesus calls us to this idea of having joy. That's what Paul means when he says, I've learned the secret of being content. Why? Because I have joy, right? And where does he get that? Where does he get that? He gets that joy from that constant connection through Jesus Christ to God. So let's talk about two other things that rob us of joy. Well, it's actually one thing, but it's two things in this way. We worry, that's the one thing, but we worry about two things, right? If you're like me, I only have two worries. How I messed up in the past, and what a shambles that is. I worry about that far too often, far too much, and what the future brings, right? I worry about the past. Oh my gosh, I messed up. Oh, if anybody really knew how much I've messed up in the past, oh, it's horrible. My past. I'm not good enough, right? Where do I get that? Where's my point of reference from? I'm not good enough. Thinking about the past, worrying about the past. Did I shape up that? No. Oh, I'm trying to do this Bible reading and this prayer thing, and the little voice in your head says, remember last year around this time, with the New Year's resolutions? How far did you get? Did you even make it to February? No. So we just worry about our constant failure. I didn't make it in the past, so the future's so bleak. And I'm worried about it. Am I going to have enough? Right? Am I going to have enough? Am I going to make it? Am I going to do? Oh, it's just going to be the same. Right? But there's that moment in the middle between the past and the future. Right? And the interesting thing about the past is I read this book about time, and it really opened my eyes to what time really is. Right? But one of the things this author said is, we will never have time travel, he said. We'll never have time travel because time is not a place. Time exists in your mind and in my mind and your mind. And in history, the past exists in our collective memory, right? So the past is either two things: your personal memory of what the past was, or the collective memory, right? And the collective memory or the past can never be made better, right? It seems to always be made worse, right? Or it always kind of comes out worse when we think about it or try to reevaluate the past. Think about one guy. He's very polarizing. He's been dead for I don't know how long, 600 years, but he's very polarizing. Christopher Columbus, right? Now, just 50 years ago, we were taking that day off. We were celebrating. Kmart was having sales. We were getting all kinds of deep cut discounts because it was Columbus Day. Now, Columbus Day, right? Why? Because we've reevaluated our past, right? We've gone back in the collective memory and we said, you know what, some of these things Columbus did actually, maybe he shouldn't be celebrated. Well, I don't care either way how you feel about Christopher Columbus. I'm just using him as an example. I don't want to be the polarizer, or please don't send any pro or con Columbus messages, because I really don't care. But it does prove the point. The past, you can't go back and fix it, right? Can't really go back and fix Columbus. It can only really knock it down, right? That's the way the past works. It's not like in 50 years people are going to be like, that Joe Stalin, he was a pretty good guy. I mean, I think we misread him for those first couple hundred years. No, it's not going to happen. He did horrible things, and those will be forever in his memory, right? So we can't fix the past, and God is not there in the past for us. He is no longer concerned with our past. He is no longer concerned with it. So we worry, we spend all this time wondering about the past, and he's not there. Now, in the future, God is there, but we can't connect with him in the future, right? We can't get in another time machine and go off to the future and say, I'm going to meet God next time, right? Or I'm going to wait to meet God, right? Think about the Ethiopian eunuch. He was given the message of God, or the message of God. He was given the message of salvation. And what was his response? His response was like, oh, you know what? I've tried some religious stuff before and it didn't take. And, I've been through that. I've been down that road. It doesn't end well for me. I can never keep up with the dietary restrictions, and it makes me feel bad about myself. And he also didn't say, I'm going to wait till I get home, think this over, and, evaluate it some more, weigh my options. He said no. He said, well, here's water. What keeps me from being baptized. He understood this key thing. We can only come in contact with the divine in this present moment. Now, only right now, can we be in the presence of God. We can't go back and redo it in the past, and we shouldn't wait for it to occur in the future, because James and Jesus, James, and others tell us, and life experience tells us, the future is not guaranteed, right? I don't want to be the guy where you could walk out of here and be hit by a bus. That's a horrible thing to say. Preachers would just say that again and again as a kid, and I would just be like, I gotta walk out of here and get hit by a bus? Who's driving that close to the church? I want to know. Why are they hiring these rogue bus drivers? I don't know. But our future's not guaranteed. The only time that we can make connection with the divine is right now. And yet, we spend a lot of our time creating anxiety, worrying about times that we have nothing to do, or we can have nothing to do with. We worry about the future, but we don't know what the future is. But I'll tell you what, if you spend this moment, the present moment, in connection with God, the future will be better. Right? If we spend this moment, if we practice being constantly in the presence of God, our future will be better. Think about Jesus. Jesus, and the cop-out is, well, Jesus was half God, half man. Well, no, he was all man, all God, right? So we say, well, he doesn't really count. But Jesus does count. And Jesus gives us an example of what it's like to constantly realize that you're in the presence of the Father, right? Think about it. He's constantly aware of who he is and what he's here for and who he's serving. He gets lost. His parents look for him, and he says at 11, I'm here doing my Father's work, right? How many times does he bring up his Father in the New Testament? Countless times. My Father. I go to be with my Father so I can prepare a place for you, right? When we pray to the Father, right? He's always the Son. He's always aware of his relationship with God. And now, think about this. When that relationship is being turned away because God cannot be in the presence of what Jesus is going through, Jesus senses it right away. God, my God, why have you forsaken me? But he knows that forsaking is not forever. Even though it's just momentarily, it shocks him. It scares him. It brings him to this point where he needs to utter this. Why? Because it's never happened before. He has always been in the presence of God. And that's where his joy comes from. I don't think Jesus was a terribly funny person. Do you think Jesus was funny? Like, yuck? No. Do you think he was maybe always happy? No. But he was always joyful. Why? Because he always had that connection. He was always in the moment. Right? Even when he was talking about heaven, he was bringing heaven into that moment. I must go so that you can have a place in eternity. And that's where we get our joy, from that connection with God through his Son, Jesus Christ. Right? Think about that. What are some ways that we can make that connection, that a Christian can make that connection? Through prayer, right? Prayer. We're through prayer as a Christian, we're allowed into the throne room of God. And if we can just sit still, be quiet, and listen, we can be in the throne room of God, right? Now, I know mindfulness and all of centering and all this, it comes off as Buddhist gobbledygook, but I practice a version of this. I guess it would be called mindfulness, trying to get myself into a mindset of being in the moment, quieting your mind, pushing the future out and pushing the past out so that you can be awake in this one moment. I think that's what Christ is telling us to do when he says, do not worry. He says, don't worry about this or that or this. It's all been taken care of. Just be quiet and listen. Be in this moment. You can't add to tomorrow, so why are you worried about it? So be here now. And that's an interesting thing. If you practice that prayer, Lord, help me to be here now. It's powerful. Help me to be here now. Help me to have the ears to hear you when you speak. Right? Spending time in prayer where you say next to nothing. That's amazing. And your mind will float. Why? Because we're human. So I pray, Lord, be with me as I'm distracted. Bring me back to now. Bring me back to now. Why? Because now is the only time we can make that connection. I can't make it clear enough. Now, you must be present now. And if that's if mindfulness or being in the moment or something like that, make up your own slogan. But you must be present now to connect with God. Jesus did. He knew the cross was coming. He went off to pray, right? To make that final connection. And he prayed for the future, which we can certainly do, but he didn't worry about it. He said, Lord, be with those folks. He prayed for us in that moment. Be with these people who believe without having seen me. The next generation of Christians, the generations that will go on and on. I pray for them. That's his approach to the future. Jesus didn't say, well, and his prayer for the future was, if we can work out another future, that would be great. Oh, we can't? Okay. Right? How did he take the future? Yes, I would rather not go through this struggle or hardship. There's no other way for me to, in his case, save the world, or in my case, learn a lesson. Okay. If you're going into a meeting and it's not going to go well, it changes your whole perspective to pray ahead of time. Say, Lord, I know this is going to be tough because I'm going to have to spend 45 minutes in a room with people that I don't really like, or that I'm going to have to make tough decisions about or with. And they're not working with the same mindset that I'm coming from. Right? And if we spend that time in prayer and we say, Lord, make me ready for this moment. Make me ready for this moment. How much easier will it be for us to realize that the future will take care of itself? Right? The future will take care of itself. Right? We're either going to make that connection now and be ready for the future with God at our side, or we're going to go in there just us. And having done it both ways, I like having God on my side. Right? I like having God on my side. And so we must get to that point where we can recognize joy for what it is, that connection with God. So that when bad times come, we can still be joyful. We can still make that connection. Yes, God is with me. God is with me at the funeral of my friend. God is with me through this divorce. God is with me through this tough time with my child. God is with me. So even though this time is not very happy, it can be joyful. And that's what I'm trying to do in my life. And I feel like, that I fail, and I fail miserably sometimes at this, but that's what I'm trying to do. Make that connection. Be in the moment where only God can be with me, and be ready for the future by preparing in this present moment. So I hope that we take those things and we are able to walk throughout our week. Sometimes we don't get to walk very far in this COVID world, but hopefully help is coming. So keep that in your prayers. Maybe that's something you can pray for in the future, that the vaccine gets here and it's right. That God works in and through that to bring us through this. But I hope these words are helpful to you. And I guess, like I said before, I think I have a horrible time ending. So this is the end.
Folks, we've had some good teachers at the Collingswood Church of Christ over the years, and of course we know it's if you were to have a short list, it'd be Phil Heisler and some others, but I tell you, this is about some of the finest Wednesday night teaching I think I've heard. This is profound. Amen. And I hope anytime our Dave Lewis is up here that you make an effort to be here and listen to this, because he's on target here. A few years ago, maybe it was a year or two ago, we did a Thursday prayer thing, and just about the only one that would show up along with me was this guy, Dave Lewis. And so we just, he says he gets a lot of things wrong. Maybe he does. I don't know every detail of his life, but he gets a lot of things. He gets the main things right. And I think that's what God's looking for. So thank you, Dave, for those profound words tonight. This would probably warrant a rewatch or a share on Facebook. Well, the kids had their virtual gingerbread house making, and that's all over our Facebook. And we want to thank especially Sue Ross and Sandra Mendez for getting that organized for the kids. That was a real labor of love for them. And Nawana is helping to keep our Operation Post Office going during COVID. And she says for our usual in-person worship attenders, just bring the Christmas cards to the building. That'll save you postage. But if it's a member who worships online, just send it by regular mail. We just try to encourage each other during the holidays. Some have large families, some are single and don't have as many family members. So that's a great way to encourage and to stay connected. Now, remember that in a couple of Sundays from now, we're going to have a baptism Sunday. That baptistry water is as clear as can be. We keep all the appropriate chemicals in it at the right pH levels, and it'll be heated. We have a nice private changing room and clothes and towels and all of that. So if you haven't been baptized, here's an opportunity. This Christmas, if you say, that 2020 was really something, but you know what? I obeyed the Lord in baptism. That would be something, wouldn't it? December 20th, 2020, that's the day for you to be baptized if you have not already. Well, I don't know that there's any other announcements. Bill, you have something, and perhaps you'll close us in prayer.
Hello, everybody. So, Dave, great lesson. We should put on the baptismal ecstasy. The gateway. That's awesome, man. Yeah, what a great way to end up 2020 to get baptized. I was telling in a sermon or something a few months ago that in the beginning of 2020, I changed one of my passwords to best year ever 2020. And in many ways it has been, but boy, what a way to end the year for somebody to be baptized into Christ in 2020. It'd be awesome. So Elizabeth had to step out, so she asked me to make a final announcement that this Saturday at 7 p.m. in our backyard, there's going to be a movie theater set up outdoors. It'll be freezing, which will be kind of cool. So bring your blankets. We'll probably have a fire going. Chris is setting up the theater. Hannah, of course, Sasha, be great. Jacob will be there. Elizabeth, Colin, Bodie will be there. Eli's been coming. Be great to have Maya. Be great, and Samaj. Right, Samaj is almost always there. Right, and I'm thinking of. I said Eli. Yeah, thank you, Eli, and Julie's son Edwin. It'd be great to get Edwin there. So that wraps us up. Any final announcements? All right. God, we thank you so much for this night that we come to worship you on a Wednesday night. Boy, what else is going on in the world? People are shopping and at the mall and all fun, good things. But boy, what a good thing it is to be here in your presence, to hear these great truths. I pray, God, that you help us to flourish, that you bring us to this place of joy that will be in your presence in the present. God bless all those members in our congregation and your great kingdom, and may we do all things to glorify you throughout our joys, our pains, our discomforts, and our wins. I pray that we do all things to glorify you. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Make you the announcement.